Welcome to a very special edition of the DTC Podcast. I'm Eric Dyck. Today you're invited to listen in on the panel we hosted last week in Vancouver, British Columbia, where we packed in 150 of the West Coast's top DTC entrepreneurs and marketers for a live podcast and some FaceTime with their local peers. We wanted to know if the world was ready for real live events, and our hypothesis was glowingly confirmed with what turned out to be a truly magical event. More on the future of DTC events soon. The panel gathered leaders from diverse sectors of the ecom spectrum, from Tru Earth, Duer, Blume, Monos, and Black Crow AI. We focused on real talk about what's working and what's not in DTC in 2022, including the return of brick and mortar, rebounding from the iOS 14.5 breakup, why everyone goes broad and why Facebook likes it that way, the importance of first-party data and where exactly to use it, and where every brand should be fitting TikTok into their media mix. I hope you enjoy the panel as much as I enjoyed hosting it, and stay tuned for something like this coming to your neighborhood soon. On with the show. There's nothing better than hanging out with your best friend, someone who finishes your sentences and knows you better than you know yourself. It's time for retailers to be their shoppers' next best friend. With Bluecore, brands can match shoppers with the products and offers they want to see next across all digital channels, including SMS. So put the power of a personal shopper in your shopper's pocket. Visit Bluecore.com to see how brands like Noble, Express, and Bliss are making shopping fun again and becoming their shoppers' next best friend.
Okay, cool. So my name is Eric Dyck. I'm the co-founder of DTC Newsletter and Podcast. Does anyone here subscribe to the DTC Newsletter Podcast? No, we actually have a QR code. Have you heard of those QR codes? They're coming back.
That's awesome. I wanted to do a little crowd thing before we started, just to recognize the incredible amount of industry that we have in this room right now. Could everyone just stand up? I know I just got everyone to sit down, but if you could just stand up. Now, if you in 2021 did less than $1 million in sales, sit down. Just jumping. It's a bit personal, yeah. Okay, if you did less than $5 million, sit down. Last year, 5. If you did less than $10 million, sit down. So everyone take note. If you did less than $20 million, sit down. I could keep going. If you did less than $50 million, sit down. Oh my God, look at what we have. There's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in this room of e-commerce revenue. Super excited. I was talking to TikTok before this. We have a special presentation by TikTok coming up, by Andrea from TikTok. She was saying that she was in Toronto. This is what stand-up comedians like to do. They like to trash other cities. But she was like, Toronto's e-commerce scene just isn't as good as Vancouver's. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that's what TikTok themselves think. So so we've gathered together some of Vancouver's most exciting brands in order to just ask some questions, have a panel here. Also, I want to give a huge thank you to blackcrow.ai for sponsoring this event, for helping us bring it all together. Very excited. Black Crow is here if you want to chat with them. Lots of exciting things that they're doing. Want to get right into this panel here. Also want to thank Pilot House, which is our sort of partner brand. Pilot House has some really cool things going on. They're offering a full audit of accounts, creatives, and whatnot. So if you want to drop your business card in the back there, they're raffling off one of these 50, 60-page documents that they do for clients. And yeah, let's get right to it here. We've got on stage here represented a huge portion. I tried to get representatives from all walks of Vancouver's e-commerce scene. So we'll start with my friend Ryan McKenzie from Tru Earth, CEO and everyone. Does anyone use Tru Earth here? I am reducing the waste because of it. We've got Bunny Ghatrora, another podcast guest that we've had who's fantastic. She's the co-founder and CEO of Blume. We've got Calvin Roex, director of e-commerce at Duer. Anyone wearing Duers right now? I'm wearing Duers. There's probably a lot of people. And then we also have Roxanne Tan, director of growth marketing at Monos, which I packed my luggage to come to this trip with. And of course, Richard Harris, who's the CEO and founder of blackcrow.ai. Thanks, everyone. Nice. So just to start, I was talking with some of the people, before this event, and a bunch of people they want to just know how things are going. How are things going in 2022 versus, Q4 is always going to be bigger than Q1, but how are your brands faring in 2022? Well, first of all, we should get you some mics, I guess, eh? If you want to... Give people mics before you ask them questions. That's rule number one. They should be. They're already on. I'm just going to unmute them. Oh, wait. We can share. One more? Who wants to go first? How are things going in 2022 with your brand versus 2021? Are you seeing it? Are you up? Are you down? How are things going?
I mean, I think it depends on the week that you ask me that question. But I think, what we've started seeing is like the shift to retail and brick and mortar a little bit. So that's definitely been a change. I think people, as we know, are like excited to head back in a store and touch and feel product again. So ecom feels like it's leveling out a little bit versus like what we were seeing during the pandemic. It feels like that brick and mortar is coming back quite strong. And so in terms of like channel allocation and channel mix, it's shifted a little bit from, purely online to retail. But
I love that. The new normal is new again. It's this idea that the pace that we set during the pandemic kind of came down a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even when you look at like Amazon was down in the last quarter.
Netflix is down 90% or something?
Totally. And I think there was that graph that, if any of you follow this newsletter called Charter, where they showed like UK sales versus like online versus brick and mortar. And that level set of that trend is pretty telling.
The rest of the panelists agree? Are you seeing a shift towards retail as well?
Yeah, this is a little loud, sorry. I think for Tru Earth, we're definitely seeing... we're definitely putting a more conscious effort into being more omni-channel. I think it obviously depends on the product that you're trying to sell, but like for laundry detergent, 80% of the people that are buying laundry detergent are, they're grabbing it when they're buying the rest of their groceries. And to not at least throw our hats in the ring in that particular channel, it would be ignorant. But as a result of the iOS 14.5 challenge with data and basically the increase in acquisition costs associated with picking up new customers, we're trying to diversify and that means being available where people are shopping.
We see that a lot too. So we're not a consumer brand or a software brand, but we work with direct-to-consumer companies. We have a view across a few hundred of them. And we're totally seeing that huge focus on diversifying away from sort of the standard playbook that got a grenade lobbed into it over the last year with iOS 14.5. So we see like both diversification in social media for a customer acquisition channel away from Facebook to TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, etc. But then I think what we're also starting to see, and maybe a function of changing economies, Q1 maybe a little softer than people thought it would be, is now sort of the customer acquisition and growth side of things is kind of back down to the level of the LTV side of things, meaning people are as focused on new customer acquisition and top line growth as they are on LTV, on retention and customer profitability. And I think when we look over the last year, it was probably a little more focused on CAC and growth. And now I think it's a little more focused, which is probably a good thing, on LTV.
Yeah, not to sound like a broken record, but we started pre-pandemic fully D2C, and then throughout the pandemic made the switch into being omni-channel, and now we are putting a lot more time, resources, and effort towards our omni-channel strategy and making sure that our retailers are well equipped, because we're seeing even at some retailers like Sephora, for example, where their brick and mortar sales, which would usually be even pre-pandemic a smaller portion in comparison to .ca, is significantly creeping up and even beating .ca in some weeks. And I think it just comes from the shift of people wanting to be in person again. They want to be touching things. They don't want to be in front of screens. And I think the concept of community is coming back in a way even stronger than it did pre-2020, out of the need for people to want to be able to connect, similar to exactly how we're doing here.
Yeah, it's definitely going up this year, especially considering that travel is now a thing again. So with people being able to travel, obviously, we see travel products go up. And obviously also comparing it to pandemic year, definitely a shift in, during the pandemic, though, I will say, I was very impressed. I wasn't with Monos at the time, but I was very impressed with their pivot strategy. Obviously, I don't need to explain to everyone here why the pandemic was really bad for us, being a brand in the travel space. But Monos was able to develop a product to go into market pretty quickly in 4 weeks. And that new product was basically like a sanitation device that current customers at the time, as well as future customers, can use. And that product was really what got the brand out of the woods.
Cool. One of the things that came up on a podcast recently with Perry Belcher was mentioning the reverse strategy that brands like Warby Parker are using, where they're quantifying their ad spend and they're seeing a huge increase in their brick and mortar stores. Is that a link that you've been able to make with your brands, where you're able to see the impact of your online in the brick and mortar stores?
It's something that we test, honestly, like on and off on a monthly, weekly basis. And obviously with like retailers, you don't have immediate data anyways, because we don't own our own stores. So if we do increase ad spend, we won't know until the following Sunday when they send us a report. So we try to do a lot of geo-targeting to those locations. So if we go really hard on Facebook ads, driving to Sephora, in certain postal codes in Vancouver, do we see the Vancouver sales increase for 2 or 3 weeks versus trying it in another geography? And so that's like a test that sometimes I don't even know if it's like effective or not, and we're just kind of guessing. So we're always turning it on and off to see what the changes are.
Yeah, I think like it's difficult to get the data from individual retailer to justify your spend. Mike cut out here to justify your spend, but one of the interesting things that you can do if you're spending enough on Facebook or on Google is you can do a brand lift study, and they'll do geo holdouts based on different regions, and you can see the incrementality of your spend to see whether or not the brand recall is there. So when somebody goes into a store, they recognize your product, and enough there's an opportunity for them to make a purchase.
And those brand lift studies, so those are the ads that I see, like which of these brands are you familiar with, essentially, right? That's what those are.
Yeah, you basically have an opportunity to ask a couple different questions. Which of these do you recognize? Does your microphone work?
Or like we've just run a Google survey as well, where you can just pay for X amount of respondents to see that awareness lift. But yeah.
But you can validate it inside the platform. It'll show you the geo holdout where they don't show your ads to versus the ones where they do, and like it's pretty significant.
We work with Majuri, the Canadian-founded jewelry brand. They have a lot of brick and mortar locations in addition to their DTC online business, and they do something similar, right? Where they will look at the geo effectiveness of ads based on store traffic, and have found a really good correlation.
What's old is new is a theme that I kind of keep hearing again and again. We just did a piece on the metaverse and Web3, and now our next piece I think we're going to do is on like direct mail. You know what I mean? Because it's just as relevant for people in some ways right now. Has anyone tried anything in the direct mail space?
But you go first. You go first.
Yeah, I mean, just on the last point, I also think we tend to care a little less on like whether it's retail or online. Like we look at D2C as a whole, and so that channel mix isn't as important of like, did we run an ad and did it increase retail or did it increase online? We sort of look at D2C as a whole. And then, I mean, the how did you hear about us surveys, obviously we run those in stores. And then, sorry, what was the
direct mail? Has anyone tested direct mail?
Yeah, so we tried direct mail at a few of our US stores. again, hard to increase the direct lift, in that moment. Like whether that's like sort of long tail and 6 months down the road, someone brings in a mail card. I think when we've looked at it, like we actually you get better rates if you do it sort of on a national level versus like a specific regional level to drive specifically in store. And I've also always felt like it's so hard to change consumer behavior, like to direct someone to go in the store after they get a mail that says like, oh, you can just go to shopduer.com. It's like, let people shop where they want to shop, and make it as easy and seamless as possible rather than thinking about it as like unique individual channels,
I think, being in CPG, it's a pretty traditional channel to get a sample in the mail, and a pair of jeans. You're not going to send like a little swatch, right? Maybe. I don't know. Hey, look how stretchy it is. Yeah. But we've done some locally, and we're actually in the process of rolling out a much bigger campaign across Canada. And it's pretty easy to validate with a primarily D2C brand because you give them a sample, they try it. There's a coupon code. If they use, hopefully,
I gave you the joke, Mike.
You gave me the joke, Mike. It's easy to track attribution, and if you get the numbers you're looking for that hits KPIs, you can easily scale it. And just if you guys ever do it, like inside of Canada, they have the craziest data. They can take all of your customer data, they can overlay it, they can find like they give you avatars for the different people that kind of make your purchases. They can tell you which customers don't buy e-commerce very frequently. It's pretty crazy.
You don't have to buy the list. It's just there. It's just addresses. Just look them up in the phone book.
But they have delivery information based on like how like each individual, how much they purchase from Amazon or from online. It's pretty cool.
So we mentioned like multiple channels here. Oh, we'll just keep going, and then we'll get some questions at the end. We'll definitely have time for questions at the end for sure. So in the wake of iOS 14.5, we're talking about multi-channels. We're talking about using platform data, using this third-party data, and what my question is, what have been your biggest attribution channels, and how have you? Sorry, what have been your biggest attribution challenges, and how have you solved them?
I like to use platform data as really just proxy data, really. It can be really useful when you're doing creative testing, like using an A/B testing tool and just making those day-to-day tactical level decisions in terms of like whether or not to pause this ad or let this ad run for a bit longer. But in terms of actually evaluating whether or not a channel is performing well, we do conversion lift studies. So these are incrementality tests that you would run on either a campaign level or an account level to be able to get your incremental ROAS. And doing that, so I haven't really done too much of that at Monos because I've only been at Monos for 2 months. But before Monos, I was working for yet another D2C company based in Vancouver called Article. And at Article, we would run conversion lift studies on a campaign level every month, and then we would run conversion lift studies on an account level quarterly. So doing these types of studies with holdout groups to really measure your incremental impact and what kind of can't speak today. What kind of incremental impact, how many times can I say incremental, that channel brings to you is really important when it comes to measuring success.
What we hear from tons of customers is obviously no one really trusts in-platform data, like Facebook data is kind of crap. And so it seems like there's a bit of like musical chairs happening now where some brands are using like North Beam or Measured or Triple Whale. I don't know what you guys, it'd be interesting to hear from you guys. People are sort of like, it's a system and you can kind of call anything your system of record, but I don't think anyone is super sure that those are particularly better based on the sort of assumption rules that they use. One super interesting thing we've been seeing and doing is figuring out, because I think what we see a lot is that given that it's really hard to attribute, say, ROAS, where you're trying to figure out your marketing effectiveness, tracking back to a conversion or to LTV is obviously the goal. That's become really hard to do. So people are searching for these upper funnel metrics, and a lot of stupid stuff is coming back, like clicks or engagement or other stuff that's like very 1998, but like there's no other path on it. And so we've seen new upper funnel metrics come before. One we help a lot of brands work on with is, so our core thing is we predict the future value of users in real time. We're a machine learning company. So in real time, we can predict how likely is someone to do the thing you want them to do, subscribe or buy or whatever. But because we're doing that prediction in real time from the moment someone arrives, when people turn on a new channel or a new campaign or even new creative, we can now say, hey, the people coming in from this channel, X% of them, 40% are high value, high future value when they're coming from TikTok, versus only 10% are high future value when they're coming from this new Reddit campaign you're running. And so it's obviously not conversion data, but it's a very accurate set of predictive audience data. And so I think there's a lot of experimentation with that that's beginning to happen. What else can you do up funnel, but that isn't stupid?
We use the probably least sophisticated approach is really just talking to our customers, and our post-purchase survey is like our gold right now. And so we use in-app data for things like, A/B tests, or if an ad got 0 impressions, 0 clicks, et cetera, we'll cut that ad. But in terms of which channel's working, how we increase spend and what that looked like, our post-purchase survey really is number one. We also use Triple Whale, which is quite effective, but again, it's still unreliable. And so we really stay as close to our post-purchase survey as we can. And then we also follow up pretty regularly with different customer segments based off of either their LTV or how long they've been a customer for, or what product they purchased, to find out, who they are, more about them, what made them buy, how they heard about us, et cetera, et cetera. And then we try to just build new customers around that profile. I think the perk of being small is that we're still able to have those one-on-one conversations with our customers, and they're still able to give us that feedback real time. And I think right now I'm really thankful for it, just with all of the changes and the updates to iOS, and not always having like the resources to have a really sophisticated machine learning tool. And one thing is to implement the tool, another thing is then to be able to understand it. And so we really just try to stay as close to our customers, and as we try out new channels, whether it be influencer, TikTok, et cetera, just continue following up in survey questions.
Yeah, I think that channel diversification piece is huge. I think, iOS was like maybe the bigger bomb, but like GDPR and all these pieces was coming, and so we all knew that first party data was sort of going to become what needed to be your bread and butter. But one interesting thing that we've done is, we've gone really broad on Facebook. Instead of, we have lookalike audiences and some VIP audiences, but the broad audience seems to actually work way better for us. And like I said, we've really diversified off of Facebook and the Instagrams of the world and started doing a bunch more channels. But interestingly enough, like where you used to go super targeted, we've seen like really broad ad sets in your audience work much better than your like specific narrow defined ones.
Agreed, yeah.
I hear that again and again. Everyone here going broad? Yeah.
That's a conspiracy by Facebook to get you to spend more money. Everyone knows.
I think it is.
Also that.
I think it is. I like that. Like about Black Crow, like part of Black Crow's thing is that you can be a bit more choosy about the impressions that you do get, right? Like in terms of remarketing. I always think like when I have a retargeting campaign and my saturation on them is like 8x or 1, I always wonder how efficient that is.
Yeah, I mean, are there Facebook people here? Can I speak freely?
I think so. Just TikTok.
If the black helicopters come, just like hide me. But no, I mean, listen, what is Facebook's interest, right? Facebook's interest is to keep a brand's nose above water, as close to drowning as they can, but just above water so that they can keep spending. And so their optimization is maximum dollars spent. For a brand, that's not obvious. Maximum dollars spent is not a goal. You're looking for maximum conversions or maximum efficiency. And so those are kind of at odds. And I think someone was talking about the fact that attribution modeling has kind of sucked. People can't use a machine learning tool. So a lot of the last decade has been, hey, let Facebook figure it out, or let Google figure it out, and they've got ML and optimization. And now it's sort of coming to a head that the interests are not totally aligned.
You got to take your own interests at heart in a way, right?
Yeah, and so that's why I think like broad audience, which is what Facebook reps have been telling all the brands to do, it's like that helps them have a much wider base of people where they can keep everyone's nose above water and still maximize spend even though the audience sizes have shrunk because Tim Cook is trying to kick Mark Zuckerberg in the nuts every week. So what really works actually is taking a much more fine-grained approach. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend less, but if you, for instance, you were talking about retargeting, if you know the future value of users, right? If you know which people are much, much more likely to convert in the future or subscribe in the future versus those who aren't, of course, subject to incrementality, you want to focus your dollars on people that have some future transaction value. Now, Facebook doesn't want you to do that. They want you to spend on everyone, and their algorithm will figure it out. We do this over and over with hundreds of brands, but when you see, if you know the future value and start spending your budgets on those with higher future value or lookalike audiences based on those with higher future value, and you start allocating your bids according to value, the efficiency gains are massive. And so the weird thing is, Facebook knows that people are doing this, and they know that that enables them to spend more money, but they're still advocating this very broad range, target broadly, because it gives them more control.
It's
more slack.
It's getting people to pay for the impressions that they can't sell.
That's totally right. They're selling you a massive portfolio of clicks, right? And they know if they keep your ROAS above whatever your threshold is, 1.1, you'll just dump money in there. Now, it turns out, if you look at your traffic and where your dollars are being allocated, when you break it down, a third or a half of your spend is way underwater. And another 10 or 20% is 8x your ROAS target. But they don't want to let you pick and choose. But you can.
Try some more targeted spend, everyone, on TikTok and Facebook, perhaps.
Tax season is over, but that doesn't mean your e-commerce company shouldn't stay on top of things. It's a hassle trying to find a strategic tax advisor that can ensure you have the right financial data needed to make critical business decisions. Look no further. The veteran team at 1-800-ACCOUNTANT has your back. Boost your profitability with 1-800-ACCOUNTANT, America's largest virtual accounting firm. They have the on-demand accountants you need to formulate your year-round tax strategy. They offer an entire suite of professional services, including payroll and bookkeeping, to make sure that your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Get started today by scheduling a free appointment at 1-800-accountant.com/DTC. Speak to an expert who will show you how to get the most out of your business year-round. That's 1-800-accountant.com/DTC to schedule an appointment now.
Super interesting. So, Mike, what would you guys say is the biggest challenge that you've overcome with your brand's growth?
iOS 14.5.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because you guys have been growing a lot, right?
Let's be honest. Facebook's been both a blessing and a crutch for every single brand that's popped up in the last 5 years. Everybody had it easy. It was like a cheat code for growth. Facebook had the data. You gave them some creative. It popped out results. And then once everything changed, it became very heavily creative and segmentation focused. And now everybody's Facebook's not doing it. Is TikTok going to be the next magic pill? Is YouTube going to be the next magic pill? And I think people are having to shift back to fundamentals of marketing, like picking your channels, going after very specific segments of it. And you might not have all the data that you want. Honestly, I'll look at Facebook data and there'll be 30 sales on one particular ad in a day, and I'll look inside of Google Analytics and I'll dig into last click attribution, and there'll be zero. Where the hell is it getting this number? Why is it telling me to ramp up my spend? I spent $10,000 on 6 sales. That's bullshit. I'm just kind of rambling now, but it's forcing people to look at more traditional ways of marketing and going back to the roots of things like direct mail or I don't know. We're even looking at
newsletters, podcasts,
creating content, SEO.
Yeah, I hesitate to say this because honestly, maybe we're not looking at the right things, but iOS 14.5 didn't really change much of our strategy. Again, we'd pulled off a lot of Facebook and Instagram leading into the past couple of years here. I think the biggest challenge for us has been cracking the U.S. market, which I think obviously is huge. And there's so much more media buys and so many more opportunities there, but the investment and the level of that you sort of need to commit to is so much higher. You know, we just did this buy with this newsletter called Morning Brew, but you know that cost us $20K, you know, right out of the gates to execute. And so you've got to be willing a little bit probably to figure out, you know, for every one influencer that works, 10 don't, you know, so it's those pieces in terms of, for us, we're finally at a point now where we've probably reached a tipping point with our spend where we can test these bigger media buys, and if not everyone returns like what we need it to, you know, the one that does really hits really well for us, yeah.
What about you, Bunny?
Right now, I'd say probably supply chain, and I think the biggest difference that like iOS 14 has made is that you can no longer estimate your sales the same way I think you could when you're able to be like, okay, I spent this much on Facebook, I got this Roex increase, and you can kind of map out what your next 6 months or 12 months would look like, and then you'd be able to previously, you know, for us, we'd be able to place purchase orders, you know, 3 months in advance, and now suddenly I'm supposed to be placing purchase orders for our Q4 sales yesterday, and I don't really know what my Q4 sales are going to look like, and so it comes up, you know, a big crunch of being able to continue to invest in marketing and growth and take those risks to take some of those bigger swings while still having, you know, cash allocated for inventory that I think I'm going to sell, that I hope I'm going to sell, but without having, you know, as reliable of marketing channels as we used to have when it came to Facebook, et cetera. It just feels like throwing a lot of darts in the air and hoping something lands.
Roxanne, I know you're only 2 months in.
Yes.
So I'm sure you're beset with challenges right now, but what would you say is the sort of biggest challenge that you've either overcome or that you're looking to overcome in the next little while?
I think just in line with the whole iOS 14 narrative, I think a lot of marketers are now looking into brand building and just brand marketing in general. So we are also at the phase now where we are starting to look into that. We're experimenting now with CTV advertising, YouTube, just like really high funnel stuff. And obviously, if you're being smart about it, you can funnel those audiences through down to your remarketing campaigns and to your lower funnel campaigns, and just kind of like rebuilding those audiences that have been decreasing over the last few months, as I'm sure everyone has experienced. So yeah, brand building is kind of like top of mind for us at the moment.
I can tell you from looking across, like one of the big challenges with maybe some of the bigger companies we work with has really been, I think the message they've taken away from all this turbulence, and I think you said it earlier, is like you have to get your first party data house in order. It's just not an option to let others take care of it or to not take full advantage of this key asset that brands own, which is their own first party data and zero party data. And so we've seen the real smartest guys just say, you know what, I need to take the most expansive view possible of first party data and how can I make the most sense of it? And that's a big one. It's the stuff that, you know, Amazon and Facebook and Google have been doing for the last 5-7 years. And how do they get access to the same kinds of tools and insights that the big guys are, because it's not an option to be on autopilot or rely on third-party data.
Does anyone have any good examples of sort of using first or zero-party data in sort of a new way? Or a way that you're leveraging it or a way you want to leverage it in your business?
That's my whole fucking company.
That's your whole fucking company. Well, start us off with an innovative.
What's the coupon code? What's the coupon code?
Where's your QR?
Do you have a coupon code?
I do actually. We do. Well, yes, we do. But
go ahead.
I'm joking.
No, I don't know. Do we have coupon codes? No, we're like a software company. We don't. But if you want to talk about stuff after, some of our guys around it, Cam and Justin are at the back. But
I'll just hit honey.
Honey. Yeah. No. I mean. When I say that's my whole fucking company, that's the thing that we, like machine learning is about making sense of massive amounts of data, right? And so I think everyone's got the message over the last few years that companies just generate tons and tons of data. And when most people think about analytics or what sort of customer data do they have, what sort of first party data do they own, it tends to be a pretty narrow view of it. It's like, what's in my CRM database, which is past purchasers or people who've signed up for my email newsletter to get the 15% off discount, and then they ghost me after that first transaction. But it turns out that like the universe of first-party data that brands own is much larger than that, right? It's all of the interactions and behavior that people who show up to their brand environment perform, right? It's all the context, how they move through your site,
how they're lingering on images, what they come back to, how they refine their searches over time. All of that behavioral data, even from someone who's never bought anything or never signed up, that is something you own. It's your first party data. And traditionally it's been like dark matter in the data universe. And because there's so much of it, it's a tough technical problem to pull sense out of all that data. Machine learning does a great job of that. And that's what we do all day long, is how do you make sense of, meaning how do you produce predictions of the most important KPIs in a business based on what's traditionally been a very hard set of inputs to train, right? Real-time streaming data. But it can be done, and it's a one-click install if you're a Shopify store.
Yeah, and I think you got to start somewhere, right? Like I think depending on the scale, like it is tough. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but just in having someone look at that data, you still need the resources a little bit behind it to know.
So we and there's other companies out there helping brands make sense of data, but in our case, it's you put our pixel on your site and the machine just starts learning. It takes 2 weeks and have a beautiful predictive model that'll predict the conversion rate or subscription rate of each decile of your traffic, and then push it wherever you need it to get pushed, into Facebook or TikTok or Klaviyo or whatever it is. And so it's most of our customers don't have a data science team, certainly don't have a machine learning team, and that's why we built the whole product, is to go after that market. But it's really those sorts of like ML insights, those data insights can be consumed inside of the workflows people are already doing in your Facebook ad manager, TikTok ad manager, whatever it is. So stuff's getting a lot simpler.
It's super, like, I don't want, we'll have to do a podcast and go down an AI rabbit hole. But I think to me that's the most interesting that AI is going to have to do for us. Is like as we go to whether we're on the blockchain or as we produce more data, that ability, that data is going to get more and more open, I think, and it's really going to be the people that have the ability to make sense of it in any walk of life. That's going to be important. Okay, I know everyone's giving very sensible answers about it. Doesn't really matter the channel. We're going back to sensible marketing practices and things like that. But what channel are you most into right now? What ad channel are you most sort of electrified
My CEO
by?
is super into TikTok right now, and it's doing really well. But obviously, it is very hard to measure. So really, how we're measuring it right now is just really looking at post-checkout surveys. But even based on that, so we didn't do TikTok last month, and we just started it this month, and we've already seen like a huge increase in post-checkout surveys indicating that they heard about us from TikTok. So that is really promising, even though we can't measure shit on the actual platform. So yeah.
We're sharing an influencer, actually. We both share Marina, who does
We do?
ads for
Oh,
both
cool.
of us. Yes.
Okay.
She's great.
You actually can track, if you're using Google Analytics and you go into multi-channel funnels and you break it down by TikTok, like so if you're looking at your last click attribution or whatever bullshit TikTok feeds you, the numbers aren't that great. If you go into GA, multi-channel funnels, assisted conversions, you can, and provided you don't have a whole bunch of different conversions set up on your Google Analytics account, you can break down all the. Maybe I'm allergic
I think
to
it's
this
you.
mic. I think it's me. I don't know. But you can see all the data there, and it's significantly more robust.
That data is really great to look at, yes. But also the customer match rate on TikTok is just so low that it's just 20%. So I feel like we're not measuring the 80% of it. So that's kind of like the biggest issue we have with it right now. And also their conversion window, I believe, is pretty short. I want to say like 1 day.
Just ignore it. Use GA.
But we're also lucky in a sense that like our conversion window in general for luggages is pretty small to begin with, so we're able to get away with that. But like previously at Article, like nobody would buy into TikTok because it takes like 60 days to make a purchase for furniture. So yeah, it's great that it only takes a day, I guess, for people to buy luggages.
Nice. Any other comments on favorite channels?
Right now, ours is TikTok, going really deep in influencer and Amazon.
Yeah, and I mean, just on that influencer, we've seen really good sort of ROI with like YouTube collaborations. I mean, a level of influencer, obviously, but that partnership, like if you've got a product that needs like someone to get behind it and explain it and sort of show you the adventure they're doing in their Duer jeans, et cetera, like it really helps communicate a lot of the sort of value props outside of these like short 6-second, reels. It sort of, in a way, almost feels a little bit more authentic sometimes rather than sort of just like your influencer on TikTok. Or
I did a podcast yesterday with Tabs. Has anyone heard of TabsChocolate.com? They're like a viral chocolate company. They make one product. It's called Sex Chocolate. It's apparently chocolate that improves your sex. And it's all designed to be a viral product. They haven't spent anything on ads. And their strategy on TikTok is basically they give people franchises, essentially, where you get like a Tabs chocolate like Orlando or something. And that way they like build that distribution channel with an influencer. And they say, hey, you're not just an influencer for us.
pyramid scheme?
You're like a franchisee. No, they don't pay for it. No, it's free. It's free 99. But then they have a new channel and it's like Tabs Orlando. And then they create content and then they just do rev share. But it's a way to like lock in that distribution channel with influencers, which I think was an interesting one. I just wanted to say sex chocolate at this thing, so that's why I did that.
Anyone else selling sex? Because it's a different thing, when you're selling
You
sex.
combine them both. It's easy to sell, I would imagine. All right, I want to thank this panel for coming up today and sharing their answers here. Let's give them a round of applause. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dyck, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.